Today I'm going through a box of pennies and a box of nickels. I'll be pulling the copper out of the pennies, also looking for wheat pennies while I'm there. In the nickels, I'm going to pull out, hopefully find some silver, and also keep all of the older nickels. And we'll be talking about why you should hoard copper and nickel, and the benefits, and the future of the two commodities. I'll start a little bit with the pennies. What we do is I order a box of them. A box of pennies at your local bank is $25. It gives you 50 rolls of pennies. And I look through them, and I want to take out the copper pennies from all the other newer zinc pennies. The copper pennies are from really 1981 and older, is all 95% copper. From 1993 and newer is all 97.5% zinc with the copper coating on them. And so what we'll do is we'll look through these and pull out the copper ones and save them, and I hoard them away. I have currently just under 125 pounds of copper. I did a video a few weeks ago where I said my goal was 230 pounds of copper, because that's like the equivalent of a kilo of silver, which is about 35 ounces. And so you look through these. Here's a 1979, and that is copper. Today's copper box. And I'll put it in there. I already have one in there that I found on the floor that I had from another box that I had dropped. And so I searched through all of these, and I look for really nice ones. I look for wheat pennies. There's a 1982. It looks like it may have had some paint or something on it. So let me tell you while I'm here. During the year of 1982, they transitioned from the 95% copper composition over to the 97.5 zinc composition. And the weight is how you tell the difference. A lot of people don't want to bother with it because they don't want to mess with it, so they just take all the 1981s and older, and from 1982 and newer, they just cast those, return them back to the bank. I have found that the vast majority of them are copper, so I go ahead and weigh them since I'm dealing with these pennies and looking for copper anyway. The copper is 3.1 grams, and the zinc ones are 2.5 grams. I'm getting this set to grams. And there we have a copper penny. I have another jar here where, as I'm going through them most of the time, I just throw all the 1982s in there and weigh them at the end of the box. But I've already weighed that one, so I'll throw that in today's copper. And then I have this big box. Where I throw all the zinc pennies in, and then I return these to the bank, get my money back for them, and then, maybe buy another box of pennies and go through them. And I just save it and save it and save it. Let me show you. Over there under my desk, I have 4 boxes of copper pennies. Each of them weighs 25 pounds. Once I get a couple more, I'll find another place to store them, but under my desk works pretty good right now. I just saw, this is still that first roll that I opened, and I saw in there that there's a Canadian penny. This one is 1993, and you definitely want to hold on to your Canadian pennies because they are all 98% copper, and they remained copper all the way up to the year 1996. I really enjoy finding the copper pennies. First of all, just because they're different. They make it fun and interesting. But most of them that you find are copper. All of the copper ones are 98% copper, but over the years they started changing and lowering the weights. From 1996 was the last copper, back until 1982. They're the 12-sided ones like I have here, and they are 2.5 grams each. 1980 and 81, they were, I forget exactly, it was 2.79 or somewhere in that 2.8 grams, somewhere in that vicinity. And then from 1979 all the way back to 1953 when they started Queen Elizabeth, those were all, I believe, 3.1 gram, something like that. Before Queen Elizabeth, they had King George the Sixth, I believe. And then back before that, you had the large cents, the really big ones, about the size of the $half. And they're pretty cool, too. Another thing that I see is even in this very roll, which is kind of funny, it's a 2009. And these are a little bit special. 2009 was a commemorative year for Abraham Lincoln, and they made 4 different designs on the back. These are zinc pennies, by the way, but they made 4 different designs on the back. And if you remember, 2008 was a financial troubled year for the U.S., and so they prepared, the penny for the 2009 commemorative, and because it was during a stress year, they made way less of them than they normally made. They anticipated making just millions and millions more than they made, and so these are collector coins. And so whenever you see a 2009, I would suggest you put that away, because they're still made quite a few, but compared to how many they minted of the years before and after was considerably less. So save those, and it's fun to get the different designs on the back. So save your 2009s. Now this just happens to be the very next roll that I opened up, and I found the next thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about, and that's this penny right here. Not just this one. That's a 1956. Look on the back of it. It is a wheat penny. That was the design that they made from 1909 until 1958. And these are collectible. Not all of them are worth a lot. They're worth a little bit more than just the copper itself, because collectors are willing to pay a little bit more. Some of them have a pretty good value, but all of them are collectible. They're just fun to find. I love that old wheat design. I really enjoy finding these. In my area here where I'm at in Kentucky, I usually find approximately 10 of them per box. And sometimes I find a really old one. I've even found a 1909, which is well over 100 years old, and that's a lot of fun. This is a pretty common one, but it's still fun to find, a wheat penny. So that's one of the things that you're looking for. Before 1909, they made the Indian head pennies. I have a few people that I know that have found those in their coin roll hunting. I've not found one yet. I have found buffalo nickels, but I've not yet found an Indian head, and I hope someday that I might get lucky enough to find one of those. But look for your wheat pennies and keep them separate away from your copper, because they have a kind of a special collector place. I really enjoy finding these. Also wanted to mention, and I made a video of this just recently. So there's another 82. I'll put that in my 82 jar and weigh it when I'm finished. But depending on where you are, copper will kind of determine how much copper you get. Here there's a 59. This was the first year that they made them with the memorial on the back. depending on the region you're in, will probably kind of lend itself toward how much copper you get per box. When I first started, not too long ago here in this area, I was getting just over 3 pounds on average per box. Here in the last couple of months, I believe I'm getting a little bit under 3 pounds per box. And I went up to Detroit recently, just for a visit, for a little getaway, for fun. And while I was up there, I picked up 4 boxes of pennies. Each one of those boxes had over 4 pounds of copper in them. Not to mention, they had 30 to 40 Canadian pennies on top of the 4 pounds. Also, I got an average of, I think, 10 or 11 wheat pennies on top of the 4 pounds of copper. So I definitely did considerably better in my copper in Detroit. While I was in Ohio, I picked up equivalent of pennies at different banks of a little over a box, and I averaged for one box there, it was about 3.5 pounds. I talked with a gentleman in New York. He says that he gets 5 pounds per box, which is pretty amazing. And I saw another person writing to another person who was asking about it, and they said not to expect but 2 to 2.5 pounds. So clearly, I don't know where they were from, but clearly wherever they were from, they were getting even less. So depending on where you are will determine approximately how much you'll be getting per box. I pulled my phone off my little holder here because I wanted to show you this mat. I do sell these mats, and there's my nickel mat, and I also have others, quarter and $half. You can get these from other people, but I designed mine smaller so they'd be cheaper. When I first came across these mats, I thought they were really neat, and they were from $17 to like almost $30 to get a mat. And I'm kind of tight, I guess you'd say. Anyway, they were a little bit bigger than this. They were like 17, this is 14 inches, and they were like 17 inches. And the cheapest ones were $17. And so I designed some mats that I sell, and I sell them on eBay. I'll have a link to at least these two below the video. I sell them for $9.99. If you buy more than one at a time, be sure and read the description, because it's a little weird thing I've got worked out with on my eBay. You can get a discount if you buy more than one. And that's just, that's if it's something you think you want. But it gives some of the basic information. Along with this, I sent another little sheet of paper out that gives a little bit more information. But one of the things I want to mention is it tells you some of the varieties, which means errors. This is just a fraction of the error coins that are, and error coins have value. Some of them have a lot of value. I started collecting coins as a kid, and I was really into old nickels and Indian head nickels and wheat pennies. That was kind of what I started as a kid. And as I got older, I started collecting silver and a few other things. And I never got into the varieties at all. Then I got married and I didn't collect for a while. And then just several years ago, I got back into coin roll hunting and looking for silver. And now I've added copper to it, and even a little bit of the nickel there. There's some $half I got to go through yet. And anyway, I had just never gotten into the varieties because they do take a lot of time to look. Because a lot of them you can't see real good with the naked eye, so you need to get a pretty good magnifier to find them. But I'm going to start adding a little bit more of that into my collection, because some of them are really valuable. So if you're wanting to get into coin roll hunting and hoarding copper and maybe even hoarding nickel, I would probably suggest that you might want to start considering at least starting out a handful of them that you're going to look for. It would take you years to learn all the different varieties and to look for, because there are so many out there. But there's some of them that are more common and that are easier to spot. And so start with some of those. I have a handful of them listed on this mat. But there's a lot more than this. And so that's just another, I get people writing to me all the time, why aren't you spending more time looking for varieties? And I have to admit, it's just something I had never gotten into. I've started looking a little bit more lately, and I guess that's about all I can say about that. Is I'll probably keep adding a little bit more time looking for those as time goes by. I'm getting older. I'm getting into the retirement years. I'm semi-retired now, and so I'll probably start spending a little bit more time looking for them. I'm quickly running out of room on my table here. I just wanted to show you, when you order coins, oftentimes this is what you'll see, a box of pennies, and they'll be sealed with this strip on there, and that's what you want when you order them. Chances are, if that seal's been broken, someone's already bought it, gone through them, and returned them. So be careful with those. I have gotten several boxes of $50 that when they handed them to me, I checked the seal, and it was broken, and when I opened it, one side was still rolled like that, but the other side had been opened, where they took them out and then put the coins back in and then just laid the top back on top of it. So that is not what you want, because that means somebody's already been through it. So when you order them like this, they'll be sealed. Some people prefer not to get them like this. They prefer to get them customer rolled, and that's what these are. And so I asked the lady at the bank if she had any that were customer rolled, just so I could show you. And there's several different types of wrappers that you may find. Here's an empty one, I guess looks like that one. But there's quite a few different wrappers that they may use. But these are what you will find if you get customer rolled. It's really hard to say, because it's not impossible that the customer rolled is what other people have already gone through, and then they roll up and bring them back. That's very possible. But on the other hand, it could be coins that they've had set around for years and then decided to roll them up and cash them in. And if that's the case, you're probably going to do really good. You may find some really, really fascinating things in there. And one thing that I have found with the customer rolled relatively frequently, and it's kind of fun, is I find some dimes here and there. So every time you find a dime, you just made yourself a 9-cent profit. Everybody has their own way of going about searching through these pennies. My favorite way to do it is I just simply pop off the ends on each side, and then I roll it out, discard the paper, and then I just lay them down kind of on their side a little bit. Whoops, I hit my light. And then I use this magnifier that has a light in it. Works really good, and it's also got a 44 times, so I can really look at something close up without pulling out my bigger coin magnifier if I want to look at something. And then I just go through this, because my vision isn't fantastic anymore, and I can look at the years. I take there's an 82, I'll throw it in a little jar. The copper I'll put to one side. Oh, here's what, I can't even read that at all. It feels kind of like zinc. But if you have your scales handy right beside you, you can just weigh it. In fact, we'll go ahead and do that. Usually I just throw those in with the zinc if I can't see what they are. 2.5. So just like I thought, that's a zinc penny. I just wanted to let you know that you can weigh it, but if you can't read it, chances are it's because it's all newer and yunky. The zinc gets in bad shape really easy. When I metal detect and I find one, they're chewed up with the ends chewed up. Just sometimes half the penny is gone because it's just a cheaper base metal. I found this one in that very roll I was just showing you. This is something else I wanted to point out. This is a 1972. It's going back quite a few years, and it's just nearly in perfect condition. This is a copper coin, and it's just amazing. Just really amazing the condition that this is in. When I find them this good, I don't throw them in with my copper. I set these aside and I put them in a little plastic case, or at least, if nothing else, I put it in a tube with others that are just in fantastic condition, and I'm just going to save them away. They're just so nice. That is just amazing that it has been around all of these years and has stayed that nice. And so I'm going to put this on the side, and I'm going to save it for just because it's a really nice coin. Maybe my kids will get these someday. I don't know what's going to become of it, but it's just too nice, in my opinion, to throw in with my box of copper. I am halfway through that box of pennies. The zinc is really stacking up over there. I'm just about 1 pound 4 ounces on the copper, but I've not weighed the 1982s that are gathering up. I have never found so many 2009s. I mean, I don't know what's going on. Here's one of the designs here. But all the rest of them are the same. Somebody must have just got rid of some or something. I don't know. But I've never seen this many. And this is just a half a box. So it's kind of cool. I'm going to put them away. I got 2 copper Canadian pennies. I found another super nice one. Older copper. I got a 72 and a 70. That I'll keep those put away. And 1 wheat penny. That's all I've found. That's very strange. Even if I don't find 10, I usually find 7 or 8. So I'm a little disappointed on the wheat pennies. I was hoping to find more. But I'm going to finish going through some of this. I'll have a few more things I'm going to say. And then we'll look at the nickels a little bit. Well, I'm moving along in the second half. I still haven't found my second wheat penny. I did find another Canadian, and this is a little bit younger Queen Elizabeth. Let's see what year it is. This is a 1964. That's one of the heavier ones, and it is 98% copper. I don't remember right offhand the weight. Let's see here. Let's stick that right under there. .3 grams. And I think the 80 and 81 is like somewhere around 2.79 or something like that. And then the 82 up through 96 is the 2.5 grams, same as our zinc penny weights. You see that? That's fun. I found a dime. It's always fun to find a dime. It's not silver, but it's dime. That's pretty fun. Wish I'd found another wheat penny. Folks, I turned off the camera to finish going through that roll, and I found another dime. I am not kidding you. That's 2 dimes in the same row. Well, it'd be fun to find a lot more of those. That's so funny. So, what is the big deal about copper, and why should we save it? Well, it's pretty easy right off the bat. The copper pennies, as of today, are worth a little bit over 2.5 cents each, because the copper value has gone up so much in the last few years. And it has been, if you go back to a 40-year chart, you can see that it just consistently rises and rises over time. And it's going to keep going up. There's so many uses for the copper, and the need for copper is rising faster than they're finding copper. Now, there is some new technology being worked on, because somewhere out in those copper fields, wherever they all are, I've read that there's just millions and millions and millions of ton of ore that has trace copper in it, but the older technology can't retrieve it, and so there is a company that's working on retrieving that. And as the copper prices go up, the more quickly they will try to find ways to make that happen. But as we are getting into the green society, the save the earth type thing, whether you agree with that or not, as we're trying to get into this new energy, wind energy and whatnot, electric cars, the need for copper is just going to go up exponentially. I've talked about this before, that the need for copper is going to rise 2 to 4 times as we get into more windmills, more electric cars. And so it's just a good hedge for savings. It's so easy. I mean, if you really want to get into it and spend the money, you can spend $700 and buy a machine that separates the copper from the zinc. I choose not to do that. I just want to do it the old-fashioned way. But worst case scenario, should silver plummet, you still have U.S. currency and you can still spend it. And if it goes up, you can sell it now on eBay and make a profit. But as it continues to go up, you're just storing away more and more value. Some people, preppers, whatnot, feel like society could possibly collapse with the new BRICS money that is getting really close to taking over as the world finance, as the U.S. dollar is getting weaker. And BRICS, it's at Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and a few other countries are also looking to be a part of that. If that becomes the dominant money in the world, it's going to change considerably how society is run in the USA, when the US dollar is not the #1 currency for the world. It's a scary thought, but it's a reality thought. US currency has dominated now for 70-something years. Before that, it was the British pound for about 115 or 120 years, something like that. Before that, it was France for about 95 years. I can be off a little bit, that's generalities. But over the centuries, these currencies, top power currencies, come along, and they don't stick around. Things change, life changes, and I'm sure Britain thought they were going to hold on to that for centuries to come, and they didn't. And here in the U.S., we feel like, oh yeah, well, what will ever change it? Well, it's already a changing world. The BRICS, they're starting to back their money with gold. We gave up that years ago, and that's the reason why we're in the condition that we're in now. Another thing, as far as the process of doing this, if you decide that you want to start hoarding copper, it'd be a good idea to get a couple of different bank accounts. Find a bank that has a coin machine. Maybe it has a couple of different branches that has coin machines. And then order your coin from one bank, and then if you can do it, take your coins to a different bank than where you order them from. The bank where I order most of mine, they tell me that they appreciate it, that I don't bring coins back to them. I know if you're in a small community, you may not have much of a choice, but if you can find a way to do it, that's just what I would suggest. Way into the second half, and I finally found my second wheat penny, a 1958D. Not uncommon by any means, but that's two. I can't get over how off I am on this box. But I found a bunch more 2009s. That is wild too. My third wheat penny. Let's see what it is. 1956. All of them are in the 50s so far today. This copper. In 1983, the transition year, where they were fully they fully went to zinc that year, they did accidentally stamp some on the old copper planchets. And so if you want to take the time to weigh all your 83s, if you find one that's 3.1, you've got a chunk of money. They're worth some pretty good money. I was hoping I might get lucky and find another wheat penny in this row, because that wheat penny was pretty early in the row. Look at all those 2009s I found in this second half, and I'm not finished yet. There's the first half. Well, there's number 4. So the second half of going through these coins has certainly been better than the first half for finding the wheat pennies. I was looking at a article from a person who was talking about hoarding copper pennies 3 years ago, and he said the reason why is because, look, every copper penny is worth 1.75 cents. Now they're worth over 2.5 cents in that 3-year period. And copper is just going to keep going up. They're claiming that by the end of the decade, we may be working on 3-day reserves on copper. Right now, it's doing pretty good, but the use of copper is just going up so fast, and that they're saying it won't be long before we'll be working on a 3-day reserve. You can be sure there's another 2009 and there's another copper. You can be sure when that happens, the price will go up, possibly a lot. Because when you have more need for copper than you have copper, the price is going to skyrocket, and only the people that are using the copper in a more affordable way are going to be the ones willing to pay the high prices for it. Just 2 more rows to go, and there's Wheatie number 5. We finally got one in the 40s. 1947. I believe that said 81. That one did. '82. I weighed out my 82s on the little scales I've got and put the zinc over there and the copper ones in here. And I weighed it, and I did. I came out with right at 3 pounds. So I'm pretty tickled about that because the last several boxes I've got here in Kentucky have been slightly under 3 pounds. I've never gotten so many 2009s. That's just freaky. And I got all 4 designs. I would venture to say this one's the most common. The 4 designs are Lincoln's birth, formative years, professional life, and presidency. I ended up with 5 wheat pennies. It's only half of my usual average. Only one of them was in the 40s. 3 copper pennies, 2 dimes, and 2 copper pennies that I'm going to save because they're in really nice condition. Alright, I'm going to get into the nickels. We'll talk a little bit about that too. Nickels. Okay, so pennies are worth over 2.5 cents each. The ones from 1981 and older. And they are 95% copper. So what's the deal with nickels? Nickels are made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. And nickel also is going up and up and up. And nickel is extremely important in the battery production for these electric cars, which is supposed to be taking over the market here in the next so many years, which everybody doubts whether the electric grid can even handle it, but that's beside the point. Elon Musk says he's extremely concerned about the supply of nickel in the future because it's a real issue, which anytime you got issues like that, that means prices go up. Nickels, like I said, 75% copper and 25% nickel, are worth about 6 cents each. Pennies and nickels the pennies changed to the zinc back in '82, and they're talking about stopping production altogether. But even if they don't, there's probably the nickels are going to have their composition changed real soon because the Fed will not keep making these coins at a loss like they're doing. Now the pennies, you have to go out and get them and separate them, whether you buy a machine to separate them or if you do it by hand. Whereas the nickels, you really don't have to do that. You can just buy a box of nickels and stick them away because all the U.S. nickels have that composition. That is, not counting the 1942 to 1945, which is 35% silver. And that's what I like to look for the most. But I also like to look for the old ones, the old nickels. All of them. I still haven't started saving all the nickels. I'm just talking about the possibilities. I did get a box of 2021 Philadelphia that were all sealed from the Fed. Well, in the Brinks box. And they're all 2021, so I've got those stashed away. But it's an easy way to stash the coins if you just want to buy a box and put away, not even go through them. Or you can look for the varieties. I've got some of them listed on my mat here, but there's a lot more. The 1964 was one of the years it was produced the most, and there's lots of different varieties in the 1964 alone. But when they change the composition in the nickels, which I think they will in the next few years, and nickel, of course, is going to be rising, along with the copper. You know, there's 75% copper. So the prices are just going to go up. You can just stash them away and wait. And the cool thing is, you buy a box of nickels, it's $100. No matter what happens, you've still got that $100. You're not out anything. If you wait 10 years and sell them back in, and inflation has gone up, obviously the $100 is of less value. You can't buy as much with the $100. But I would venture to say that your $100 box of nickels is going to be worth considerably more. I think the value of the nickel and the copper in a box of nickels right now is $116. Something like that. And it's just going to go higher. I'm going to go through these. Oh, I do want to say this. Every now and then you get Canadian nickels in here. And I'll have to look up the year. The older Canadian nickels are made 99.999 pure nickel. Their nickels are actually nickel, which is kind of cool. But then they started, after the price of nickel went so high, they changed the composition, and there's like no nickel in it, or almost no nickel in it, and it's steel. You can pick them up with a magnet, and so they're worth less than a nickel. So if you happen to buy a box of nickels that has a new Canadian nickel in it, then you're going to have a nickel that's not worth a nickel. The wartime nickels, 1942 to 1945, are 35% silver. And I'm hoping to get one or two. I used to average one per box. The way you can know that they're the silver is they will have a P, D, or S above the dome. A real big one. You can't miss it. The 43, 44, and 45 will all have those, but they didn't start the production until kind of late in 1942. So if you get 1942 coins, there's probably a little bit better than half chance that those won't be silver. But just look on there for that large P, D, or S, and you'll know. Are you ready to start saving the nickels away? I was just browsing through hoping to see a silver one. Years down the road, it's gonna be like finding the copper pennies is gonna be like the silver now, hard to find. And then maybe a little bit longer down the road than that, there's a 52. I'll keep that one. It's going to start being harder to find the nickels because people are going to start hoarding it away, and then it's going to get harder and harder to find. I heard someone say that if they're going to make these electric cars, then they should all be powered by wind or solar power. Since that's the purpose behind them anyway. Instead of using our coal to recharge them with. And that's what you do now. I have found a penny in a roll of nickels every now and then, so you lose 4 cents on that exchange. Not very often, but I have a couple of times. I just came across this 1946. I'll also say it. I also like to keep the older ones just because I like the older coins. So anything older than 1960, I'll keep them anyway. But on the back, I want to show you this. See how this, on the building, there's supposed to be steps there at the bottom of the Monticello building. And they're just gone. There's no steps whatsoever. Here's a newer coin. And if you look, you really need a good magnifier to really see it. But you can see the steps there. So if you find an older coin, it don't even have to be this old, a 1964 even. If you find an older coin that has really, really good steps that you can see on the back, that's worth money. Get on eBay and look up a 1964 or 1954, any of these older years, and put in full steps, and you're going to start seeing some money. So that would be one reason to crack open your boxes and see if you can find an older coin that's in really great condition, because that is worth good money. This one is not, it's a little bit collectible just because it's older, but it's not in any kind of condition that would warrant anything. I just like it. It is worth 6 cents because it's made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. Oh, something else that I wanted to mention to you too. Wear old clothes. Here, my hands haven't gotten very dirty yet. I've only gone through a few rolls since I've come back in and done the nickels. They get really dirty, especially on the tips of your fingers. And if you're dragging any of these, and if it's touching your clothing's going to get dirty. So wear old clothing. Don't wear a nice shirt or anything, because you'll regret it. Oh my goodness. Look at this. Do you see that? That is a 1906 V nickel. Pick it up. That is so cool. I think I've only found like maybe 3 of these ever coin roll hunting. Oh, that is so cool. A little bit of wear, but they usually do. Most of them are worse than that. That's over 100 years old. Oh, that is so cool. That's exciting. I'll put that guy away for sure. I was just going through a roll and I came across this one. It's 1965. That's in really nice condition. Here's a 63. That's typical condition, you know, some wear and whatnot. This one is super, super nice. But even still, on the back, it's just not nice enough because you can't quite make out all the steps. It's a little bit beat up, I guess you'd say. It's partially there. It's a nice coin, but it's not full steps. For 1965, that's in really good condition. Well, I didn't find any silver in this box, sadly. I did get a handful of 40s and 50s coins that I'll put away in my collection, and I found the V-nickel. That was quite exciting. I've only found a few of these cornroll hunting ever. That was pretty fun find there.